What is good, my people building? We have a special report. President Trump just got through meeting with the Ukraine president. Is he giving money away, more money to Ukraine? Wasn't y'all upset when Biden gave money to Ukraine, $2-3 billion? We gonna ear hustle, but this is a special edition. Let's get in here.
This meeting a little bit off schedule, went 30 minutes longer probably than everyone expected, but the president, of course, answering questions, and taking a lot of questions as well. I want to bring in Keir Simmons, our chief international correspondent, who's been observing all of this from Europe right now. Keir, talk to us about some of the things you noticed. I know you and I were exchanging messages. That question, the two questions about American peacekeeping troops was quite interesting because we know both the UK and the French have committed to peacekeeping troops in Russia. But this is interesting. NATO troops, Vladimir Putin would never go for. But do you think he would be okay with troops from the UK, possibly the US and France there in Ukraine?
Tom, it's the evening in Moscow, and you bet in the Kremlin they would have been watching that closely. They would have been disappointed, as you just pointed out, not to have seen another blowout between President Zelensky and President Trump and Vice President Vance. They will be noting the way that the Ukrainians appear to be more careful in the way they approach President Trump, handing over the letter from the Ukrainian First Lady, as Peter mentioned, saying thank you multiple times. But it was also interesting, and you point to it, what wasn't said. I mean, President Trump was asked specifically an absolutely crucial question: are you willing to send U.S. peacekeepers to Ukraine? And he didn't answer that question. And why is that so important? Because the man you saw sitting there, President Zelensky, will have to put a huge amount on the line if he was to agree to ceding the amount of territory that appears to have come out of the proposal on Friday. Maybe even, as Richard said earlier, ceding more territory. It looks like what he is potentially going to be offered in exchange for that is a security guarantee that Russia will not invade again, will not renew its offensive. And you can see there from the map just how much land is still held by the Russians, and how that...
Yes, in this meeting, President Donald Trump said he will be assisting the Ukraine, but he did not answer the question, will soldiers be going over there, military support? But he did say he will be backing them. Does that mean financially? Didn't we already give the Ukraine $3 billion under Biden? Are you going to say something, Trumpians? MAGA, where you at? Didn't Biden, your arch enemy, give Ukraine $3 billion? Now Trump is hollering about giving Ukraine some money, not the soldiers, but they gonna wash that money over there in Ukraine. Let's listen in. The meeting just ended. We will rewind. We'll go back and listen in to the meeting that just ended with President Trump and the president of the Ukraine.
That striking moment there where Volodymyr Zelensky presented a letter to President Trump from his wife. And this, of course, in reaction to the First Lady Melania Trump sending a letter to Putin, telling her that because of the children, they should end this war and to think about those children. Because one of the big factors here, one of the points of contention are the Ukrainian children, the Ukrainian families that are currently now in Russia-controlled parts of Ukraine. And what happens to them if there is some type of peace treaty that is signed? What happens to them if Russia keeps those land, the land that they invaded and have now conquered? What happens to all those families? Do they now start speaking a different language and become Russian citizens, or can they go back to Ukraine? But I am struck by the timeline that the president said, right? He came out and said, listen, right after this meeting, we're going to meet with the European leaders, and then I'm calling President Putin, and we want to get that trilateral on the calendar.
The timeline was incredibly notable, Tom, as are the other points that you just made. But first, the timeline. The fact that he's saying he's going to call President Putin at the conclusion of this day, it fits into the broader tone we've heard from this president signaling he wants to have that trilateral maybe as early as this week. A lot of skepticism about whether that can actually happen, and European allies concerned. They don't want this process to be rushed, Tom. They want to get it right. To that point about the children, it's so fascinating because the First Lady, and to some extent some lawmakers, Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator Richard Blumenthal, are really trying to make those kidnapped children the focus of ending this war. In fact, Senators Graham and Blumenthal out with potential legislation that they may introduce that would label Russia a state sponsor of terrorism if those children are not returned. So really trying to open up a new front in the argument for why this war needs to end, and really trying to ramp up the pressure on Russia. On that point about a security agreement, Tom, I've been talking to Ukrainian and European sources, and they say the key there is making sure that it's durable. So that means effectively that it would need to be signed into law by Congress. This is something that would need to be ratified, not just something that's a handshake, not just something that's signed by these leaders, but something that actually becomes U.S. law. So that's the type of pressure at the backdrop of this historic summit today, Tom.
All right, Kristen Welker, we thank you for that. I want to go back to Richard Engel, who's reporting live for us in Ukraine. Richard, I have two questions for you. First, your observations of what you saw and heard inside the Oval Office. But first, I want you to walk our viewers through the state of play in Ukraine right now. There are still people.
Okay, they're following up on the questions, and they have questions. We're tapping in, listening, ear hustling. A special edition to NBC News. The meeting with President Trump and the Ukraine president has just ended. President Trump has said that he will be helping Ukraine, not with troops. So what help will he be giving Ukraine? Will this be monetary support? More money? More money? Is that what we're talking about, President Trump? Didn't Biden give $3 billion to Ukraine in his office, when he was in office? $3 billion. You just cut Medicaid. You just cut social services for elderly. You just cut all kind of social services for people in need. I bet not hear him say he about to give $1 to Ukraine. Let's tap back in to the meeting. This is out of control. Let me see. Let's get it up here. It's, man, but y'all always think it is the Republicans that's gonna save us. The Democrats. No, I tell you, they all in it together. Y'all gonna learn one day. Welcome in, Tanya. How you doing? How you doing? Welcome in. So let me see if I can get to the meeting. Let's see what we hear.
Responding to civil unrest and natural disasters. Trump deployed the National Guard to the street.
Okay, no, we don't want that.
An example of.
Let me see. Hold tight, y'all. Hold tight. I want to get it exactly.
My life, after both his wife and father were diagnosed with cancer.
I want to get exactly to the meeting. Hold on, we might have to refresh. So what do y'all think about that?
Imagine being able to build an app with your
Imagine
name on
that.
it, just by thinking about it. Meet.
What do you think? Do you think it would be okay for President Donald Trump to give the Ukraine money to help end the war, or would that just help the war continue? Y'all talk to me. What is it okay? Even though he don't send any troops over there, because he didn't answer that question outright. But is it okay for him to send monies backing the Ukraine and Russia war? Their saga continues. Is that okay? So here we go. Let me see. Let's get back in here.
Or more, and the people there, and having those people being indoctrinated and turned into Russian citizens. And that is something that it's not even clear President Zelensky could deliver on, even if he wanted to. It's not clear that the people here would accept that and would stop fighting. Richard, we thank you for your reporting, but as we hear those air raid sirens, I want to make sure you and your team can get to your safety plan and figure out what you need to do in the coming minutes, but we thank you for being with us. Peter, I want to bring you back in this conversation. There's a lot of unknowns here, right? And I think one of the big questions for everyone, including the Ukrainians most of all, is what is going to come out of these meetings? Yeah. Will we get a sense of what the details of this deal are? Is it a land negotiation? Is it a peacekeeping negotiation? And how much of this has Vladimir Putin agreed to? And will Europe and the rest of the world believe him?
It's good questions. First, that requires there to be a deal, right? We've heard from one party, Vladimir Putin, the president spoke to with his aides a matter of days ago. What does he hear privately from Volodymyr Zelensky today? What are the Europeans on board with in terms of security guarantees going forward? We're obviously going to focus heavily on the potential that the president is willing to offer up U.S. troops in some form. That seems to go against much of the MAGA positions that he's taken from the very beginning. But already there's some things that they would be at odds about. You remember the president went into that meeting on Friday saying that he wanted to see a ceasefire. He wouldn't be happy if there wasn't one. Today, he said, among other things, I don't think you need a ceasefire, which is a significant embrace of Vladimir Putin's view on this, where Ukraine has long said you need a ceasefire first. Had there been a ceasefire on Friday, those 14 Ukrainians who were killed in the last day or so in Ukraine would still be living right now. So that's going to be one key hump, is how do they get over that? Then what happens beyond that in terms of the security guarantees? What is the U.S. and what are the European allies willing to give? And ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to that land in many ways. The Constitution in Ukraine, as Zelensky has made clear many times, doesn't let him make this decision on his own, whether it's going to cede land. The president says this thing would be over in a hurry if you were willing to do so. Can all of this happen overnight? There are a lot of lines that still have to be drawn by all parties here for this to come to a conclusion, but certainly it is tremendous progress in the fact that these conversations are happening, and it turns out they're all happening in many ways in one place with the president in attendance here at the White House.
Still a very busy day here at the White House. We're going to have the meeting.
Yes, a very busy day. I wanted to tap in really quick and let y'all know that the president just had his meeting with the Ukraine president. Will President Donald Trump be giving the Ukraine monies to end the war? But why would they need money to end the war is the question. A question was asked, will President Trump send soldiers over there, military U.S. soldiers, to aid the Ukraine? But he still has meeting. I think he just had his meeting with President of Russia, right? I mean, he's trying to play middleman. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. And then for him to suggest that he might help the Ukraine with monetary support, money, what they do with that $3 billion that we gave them in the Biden administration. Wasn't y'all upset about that? I know I was. I know President Donald Trump better not come out of his mouth talking about he giving Ukraine not $1 when he has cut all social benefits to aid underprivileged peoples, elderly here in America. And he turn around and give some money to Ukraine? Baby, no. Anyway, y'all, I have another podcast I have to get on and do really quick. I just wanted to tap in really quick and tell you all what's going on, what just went down over there in Washington, D.C. Y'all go check it out. We're tapping into NBC News. All right, guys, I'm out. If you're a fan of my podcast, stay tuned. I'll be back in about 3 to 4 minutes with another podcast. Talking about delusional men, some delusional Black men who cannot leave Black women alone. That podcast should be interesting. Come on back and see about me. I'll be up in about, give me about 4 to 5 minutes. I say 4 to 5 minutes, and we'll be back live. President Trump better not give one cent to the Ukraine. Okay? And I'm out.